Welcome back to Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, Prowler only. Last time we took on Gold Rathian and Silver Rathalos together at the same time. This time we'll be taking on two variants. I'm not going to go into what makes a variant because I'm not really quite too sure myself. I could probably give it a go, but I'd rather not. I just know the two monsters we're fighting here are going to be variants. The first one has us hunting a Rajang in the jungle. This is a Furious Rajang. Go ahead and take the quest. We've already hunted one before in the G5 quest for, I believe, Red Helm Arzuros. But we'll be taking it on by itself today, and I'm using the Snow Baron Sick Double Cross as our weapon. Alright, Furious Rajang, which is normally a lot larger than this. This one may even be a mini crown. It's very small, and smaller monsters usually make the fights a lot easier because we're not having to dodge as much. However, Furious Rajang, even though it looks like a strong Rajang, is not exactly the same to Hyper Rajang. Hyper Rajang is weird in that it being a hyper monster, some of its attack speeds are either sped up or slowed down. Furious Rajang is just normal, so a lot of his attacks are probably going to feel slower. The largest one here being the bouncing ball attack. This one is a bit slower and it throws off your rhythm on your dodges. So if you do dodge the second one, you might actually be hit by the third bounce attack. The first one also has the same issue there, but you still have that same issue with Hyper Rajang where the third one might hit you. So it's still more ideal to try to position out of the way of it, especially considering you're more likely to be hit by pretty much any one of them after dodging the first one. However, it's still not that bad. Again, he's not hyper, so he's not going to have the highest damage rolls in the world. However, he is still a Rajang, so he's still dealing a lot of damage. I do once again believe we have some negative thunder resistance. I should probably check, yes. So if we are being hit by those thunder attacks, there's not actually too many of them. But if we are hit by them, we will be taking some extra damage, but it's fine. It's a Rajang, so his whole body is going to be a weak point until his arms are hardened, and then those won't be a weak point. And his head is going to be the best hit zone. I don't really know. So I think Furious Rajang is supposed to not have a tail, or a tail. He has one here. I think that's just old gen limitations because in World, Iceborne specifically, he didn't have a tail. So, and I think that's always been the thing where, oh, well, this monster has lost its tail, so now it's just always mad or something like that. And here it's not really represented because it still has the tail. And I assume that's just because they're working off of the base model and just giving it extra stuff. But I don't think attacking the tail still actually counts as knocking it out of enraged mode. That's kind of the whole purpose. I think generally, and it's, you know, the same in Iceborne, you go for the head. However, I could be wrong on that. Again, normally cats don't get the topples. I do see a lot more topples here than I would normally would with a Rajang because I am attacking the head a lot more since it is the best hit zone. And obviously, if you are using Weakness Exploit here, you're going to be doing a lot better damage because, once again, his whole body is pretty much just a weak spot. A lot of times, if he does gain some distance on you, just kind of throw some boomerangs out. He's very quick, so he will just kind of close that distance pretty quickly. And once again, if I can say it enough, he is still a Rajang, so a lot of his Kelby hops and stuff can still be chained into back hops, and those can very easily be punished if you get your timing right and whatnot. I'm going to try to dodge into this. As per usual, the punches are not the most consistent to dodge into. Sometimes they're active when they're hitting you. Sometimes they're not active when they're hitting you. Sometimes they are not active when they're not hitting you. Sometimes they're active when they do hit you. It's weird. So ideally, you're getting behind the punch hitbox without even worrying about Adept being triggered or just being in the way of damage. However, you can't always guarantee that. I'm going to just kind of move backwards there. He's not really too fast right now, and he's not enraged, which is good. I have found I've compared the Kushala weapon to this one. This one's better in regular DPS, while the Kushala weapon is better in Mega Boomerang DPS. You're not getting too many here. You will get an opening for Mega Boomerang when he does his bouncing attack, because it has a pretty lengthy taunt animation afterwards. But in general play, you're not really going to get too many Mega Boomerang chances. So it's better to have the higher ice element because he does take a decent amount on his face. And the raw, while a bit low, is just really offset by that very large amount of ice element. Remember, it's 50 at base for the Snow Baron stick. Again, if you're also using weakness exploit, that negative affinity will also be offset a lot more than just using critical up large. Go for a couple boomerangs here. Earplugs is not needed for this fight. You can grab it if you want to try to risk openings while he's roaring. However, he can act out of them pretty quickly, so it's really up to you depending on how comfortable you feel with the monster. I don't even feel really safe enough to attack him while he's doing his beam. Maybe if I'm in a really good position and I notice that he's just aiming in a completely wrong spot. Like there, if I had my reticle on Mega Boomerang, then I may have used it, but I just don't really want to risk it because he is still dealing some decent damage. And he is a combo monster, so you might actually be hit quite a few times. Little jumping attack. As always, it has pretty decent tracking and can go a bit of a distance, but if you just kind of run backwards, he won't be able to track you all the way. No boomerang out there. Looks like he's just jumping to the next area, at area 3, so we'll go ahead and meet him there. All right, on to area 3. This is also going to be kind of our warm-up hunt. This hunt will not be anywhere near as difficult as the next fight, so I'm going to try to get used to it while it lasts. Go ahead and try to get this Mega Boomerang off. Again, after he jumps. Now, he can still Kelby hop backwards and do other things that will make the Mega Boomerang miss. However, you will be safe from actually being hit, especially if you have a distance and you are more diagonal towards him, so he has to do a head turn or something to attack you. Couple of boomerangs here. Hopefully he looks at us. That's why I threw an uncharged one. However, he just side hopped. I'm not sure if the side hops have a tail, and not even all of the Kelby hops have a tail too, so it's not 100% guaranteed as far as I remember. I've got that win here, but I don't really feel too safe. Actually, I'm going to risk this. If the monster overcommits in one direction, you should have a generally safe option to actually throw a Mega Boomerang. Depending on your distance, as always, the Kelby hop's going to be different. You'll either go left or right, depending on which direction he goes, unless you really want to try to risk the adept dodge. However, again, the hitboxes are a bit weird on when they're active and when they're not. Just going to go ahead and spin. I'm going to throw an uncharged one out here. If it did hit, great. In fact, it actually hit a few times, and now I'm going to start charging. All right, throw one more out here. It's going to do this. I'm going to try to catch him. Was a bit risky. I don't know if he could have angled that Kelby hop to actually hit me, but he didn't, so we're fine. There's a little grab attack. I don't know if that actually pins. It's fairly easy to actually notice, and it's actually easy to position under the way of, so you don't get hit by it fairly often unless you are just overcommitting to boomerangs or something. And it is a fairly generous hitbox. I'm going to charge this. Dodge to the right, charge one more. Just going to kind of grab a boulder. Now, I think something different about Furious is that he can grab boulders from anywhere, and he doesn't have to go to a specific part of the map. However, jungle might be specifically special in that regard. I don't remember fighting regular Rajang and him pulling them out of anywhere in the jungle, but I don't really remember any particular regular Rajang fight in the jungle either. There's a lot of places you can fight Rajang, so it's kind of hard to remember all of them. 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead and punish him here. He might back hop, but that's fine. We'll try to catch him. We get a horn break, which is nice. We'll throw this one out. Maybe could have gotten the second one out and then just adapted the actual trimmer hitbox, but that's okay. I'm going to throw one charged one. Dodge to the right. He's going to do his little hop. I'm going to try to get some distance so I'm not trimmered. Again, ideally, we're not triggering the adept dodge because we don't need gauge for anything, and we have our full DPS up pretty much. I'm going to run over there. And again, he likes to just run all over the map, so he will close that distance once more, so you don't want to chase him too much if you don't have to. And generally, a charged boomerang will cover a lot of the distance, and then anything that doesn't cover, he'll just do himself. So that's fine. Like here, I'm going to go ahead and throw these two out. Looks like he's jumping, so they caught him perfectly and hovered in that weak spot. All right, couple of areas later. Haven't taken the second horn off yet. This is normally about a 15-minute hunt, little bit over. He has about 11,000 health. Well, there's the pin I was talking about earlier. So, not that much health. Remember, we were fighting the Metal Wraths, and they both had around 9,000, so definitely less than that. So, definitely much less time that it's going to take. And since he is a walking weak spot, the only real issue is just getting a decent amount of Mega Boomerangs off. Could have actually gotten one off there since he was attacking you, but I will just try to get some other DPS off. Make sure I'm at the very least keeping up in that regard. And since we are using a deviant weapon, we're going to have a surplus of gauge if we're not using something like Flash Bombay. And we are just evading correctly. I'll try to make sure we're not hit by this. We are hit by it. Again, it's a bit rough. especially if your palicos are just kind of tagging along behind you and not really doing much else. That's kind of what Benkai was doing there. So yes, he caught us. It's a tricky attack to evade if you're just trying to walk. And even dodging can put you in some bad positions. So you really want to get the feel for actually moving in that triangular pattern to actually avoid it. I'm not really trying too hard to do it because I'm not really that worried about it. I think I'll be able to get this one off pretty safely. Even if he moves after, I should be fine. There's the second horn break. There's a Kelby hop. And the Kelby hop does not stop. It will continue carrying forward even after he lands at his little destination before he jumps to the next one. There's the punching attack, which is, again, a little weird sometimes. I wanted to wait a bit before he actually started moving forward. However, that didn't really quite work out there. So I guess an early dodge would have been better at that point. He's doing this, so I can actually pull this out immediately and punish. However, this ledge is maybe going to be bad. Never mind. Actually get a topple. I'm not sure if that was a knockout from his rage mode or if he just was kind of ready to fall over. Again, we're at the 15-minute mark, so he should be going down pretty soon, other than the fact that I'm not really getting too many Mega Boomerangs off. He will track that attack a little bit too, that little jumping slam. So if you run towards him, he will actually adjust accordingly. All right, here come the punches. I think I'm safe here. He will do a trimmer punch after, but it doesn't have the most range on it. I'm going to throw one uncharged one here. He's going to spin into it. I'm going to throw two uncharged or charged ones, not uncharged. Throw one more out here. There's the pin. Throw one more. See what he does. It's the bouncing attack. I think we'll be fine here. There we go. Punish him with this, and that's generally how the flow of that attack goes. And generally, if he does a lot more when you have a lot more gauge, obviously you'll be having better times than when he doesn't. Sometimes he just really doesn't do it too much, so you won't really be getting those opportunities. I'm sure there's other points where you can. I've just not really been too interested in actually pushing it too far, because again, it's not that bad, you know. I know the normal hunts would have ended by now, but I'm just trying to play it safe and make sure I'm not dying too much to him, even though I've already lost an acorn. Let's see what he's doing. He's doing some interesting things. There we go. There we go. Punish this. And again, since his arms are hardened, Mega Boomerang won't be as strong because it will be piercing through those hard parts. And that knockdown was a little bad because it hit on like the first hit or second hit, something like that. So we won't be getting much damage from that, which is really sad. If there one here, that did actually reach. So again, it does have some decent range, but not the most in the world. It's not like his other trimmer slams. The one here, dodge to the right. There comes a laser going at the palicos. That's why palicos can be a detriment sometimes, especially with negative thunder resistance. It's okay though. We should not cart here. It's not that hard of a hunt. I think both times we've lost an acorn. Well, we lost the acorn to the punch. So that really wasn't their fault, but that one was their fault, being in awkward positions. And obviously I could have just ran away from the palicos, so it's more my fault than anything. Reapply this. I guess I could have gotten a Mega Boomerang off there. I didn't see that I had 3 goers. I just saw the 2 that I thought I saw. Didn't actually only see 2 though. There's a hop. I'm gonna go ahead and soothing roll here. Make sure I don't get hit by that. Now I do believe the soothing roll speed is fine, but I want to play it safe, especially since I am fixing a cart. I'd rather not have that happen right at the end. Have to chase him all the way back up. All right, hopefully we can finish this here. There's the laser. Go ahead and throw a couple of charged ones out here. Nice flinch. Again, he should be going down pretty soon. G rank multipliers, I believe, are 10%. So it shouldn't be much HP at all. He's going to try to limp away again, but we will not let him. There we go. Again, simple hunt. Yes, I lost 2 acorns, but again, those are very easily avoidable. And the only time you're really going to be losing them is if you're pushing your Mega Boomerangs a lot, which I really didn't do. Either way, I'll finish carving him up. Meet you back at base. All right, back to the hub. We'll go ahead and change out our equipment for our Thunder Weapon. As per usual, if you have the Fatalis Rod, go ahead and use it. However, since I've not covered that monster yet, we're just going to use the Legia Anchor XR. Again, it's not that different. The only thing is you'll be dealing more element damage with the purple sharpness and 32 thunder element, as opposed to the white sharpness and 35. However, you also do, I believe, keep about the same raw, if not exactly the same raw. Either way, Another thing that is very important here, and something that kind of seems to contradict what I said last time, but it'll be very important, I promise, when I get to it. Dung Bombay. I tried it out Shock Prison for Dung Bombay, and you'll know that's pretty important because you know I like to keep Shock Prison on and not have to teach. However, this is nigh mandatory, not completely mandatory. However, if you want to have a smooth hunt, use this. And you might think, well, this is probably going to be single monster, right? And you'd be correct. However, if you have support move +1, go ahead, and I would recommend, if you want more damage, to have Mega Boomerang, Flash Bombay, and Dung Bombay together. Or if you want it to be safer, trade out Flash Bombay for Go Fight Win. But this will be very important. All right, back up here, we'll go ahead and eat our meal. Our gourmet voucher. And ideally, we're not getting Dung Master as a food skill for this. That will make your Dung Bombs always effective and chase the monster, I believe. So, the next monster we're hunting is called Deviljho. Deranged Desert Deviljho specifically, and it has us hunting a Savage Deviljho in the desert. Go ahead and take the quest, and we'll head on out. Okay, Savage Deviljho. This is a monster I really do not like. That's because he's a pin monster. This is not normal for Monster Hunter, but this is a monster that really likes to spam pins. The pins don't really have a cooldown, and they are fairly common, unlike other monsters which very rarely use them. Now, the thankful thing here is that there are two types of pins, and he actually did both of them there. The one where he reaches with his mouth forward, and the other one where he crouches and jumps. The one where he grabs you with his mouth, not dangerous at all. You don't have to worry too much about it. It won't one-shot you or anything. If you're at low enough health, obviously you don't want to be hit by it. However, if your Palicos get picked up by it, don't worry about it. Just use it as a chance for free damage. However, and the main point, and the main reason we have Dung Bombay, and the main reason I'm making such a big deal out of it, is the jumping grab restores HP. Now, if you've heard me talk about it before, that may not come as too big of a surprise, because normally monsters will restore HP when they pin you, or just eat a random carcass on the ground. And that may vary monster by monster, but from what I've seen, aside from Deviljho here, which I'll get into actually later when he eats, they will restore some HP. It's not much, it's almost negligible. In fact, I'm letting him restore HP. It doesn't really matter here since we're so early into the fight, but that attack there is what restores HP. Every time he does a chomp on you, it's about 2% HP he's restoring. That's bad because on a normal full health bar, that's about 6% HP for every pin. And he's pretty much almost always, if you don't have a defense buff, going to one-shot you with that pin. And you don't have Dung Bombay. That's not great. I've looked all over for this, and I have not found a single thing saying that monsters restore HP on pin and eating you, like doing that bite animation. I've seen people asking about it, asking if it's restored HP. Never seen anyone say it does. I've always seen them say it doesn't. Now, you might think, oh, well, you're probably just thinking about it wrong. However, remember I said, I believe last time with Gold and Silver, how generally when I'm labbing out builds and Prowler sets, I will go ahead and have an HP thing on. It's either a mod or an overlay, depending on which version of the game you're using. And this is what shows you, and this is where I actually figured it out, that when a monster eats sometimes, it will restore HP. And that's where I figured this out here. I've never seen it said anywhere at all. So I wanted to see if that was a fluke or not. So I did the regular quest without Dung Bombs, with my Palicos, getting pinned, wiggling out of it as quickly as possible, and Palicos didn't have Dung Bombs either. The quest took over 25 minutes, almost 30. I did the quest solo. No Palicos, just with Dung Bombay, and of course your regular damage skills and stuff. That took only a little bit over 20, about 23 minutes, something like that. When you are doing much better the immediate hunt after, and not like having your skill improve on the monster solo, as opposed to having your Palicos, that's not just a thing where your Palicos don't help much. Your Palicos are a amazing help with Palico Rally, Go Fight Win, all the things they can do. So when you're getting better hunt times solo, where you're having to play so much safer because you're not getting free health, you're not getting free gauge, you're not getting the monster not aggroing onto you and being able to do more things a bit more risky, something's up. After that, I went ahead and kept Dung Bomb equipped, and then I went ahead and get the Palicos back on the team. Did that quest. Only took a very small amount over 20 minutes, like 21 minutes, something like that. This monster has about 14,000, I believe 400 HP. I don't remember the exact amount. And as opposed to Rajang, which had 11,000 and something, that's not that much more. So 5 minutes more, you know, that's a pretty generous estimation, I'd say, if you're being very, very, very conservative about it. Fair enough. 10 more minutes for only 3,000 HP. Something's wrong there, especially on the run that I did. It wasn't particularly bad, but when the monster is restoring 6% HP and knocking you out with its pins, that's pretty substantial. Because if he gets 3 of those, that is 18% of his HP. That is almost a fifth of his HP. That's not good at all. And again, haven't seen anyone mention this. I've seen people deny it, not specifically for Savage, and Savage is a special case. I may have said it last time when we were fighting Silver Rathlos, I think when he pinned a cat, that he restored HP. However, normally that is a chance for you to get a Mega Boomerang off and offset the damage it's healing and get a flinch on it, cancel it from healing HP or something like that. Here, that is not the case. The amount of HP this monster restores when he pins you is so ludicrous that your Mega Boomerangs are still just a net negative. And we're going to miss that one completely, unfortunately. But that's important. Now, the only thing I could maybe chalk it up to is maybe people not really noticing it because they're playing with 4 people and they're getting some pretty good hunt times anyways. So you're offsetting that by having 4 people, or people playing solo and just not really thinking much about it because it's a G4 Deviljho and it's a Savage Deviljho. It's a variant. However, again, that's just, and I don't want to stress it too much because this is actually the second time I've done this. The first time I was just rambling about it the entire time, so I want to try to avoid that. I've already been going for like 5 minutes now. It's really substantial, and that's why I find Dung Bomb to be important. I was getting lots of Flash Bombays and Mega Boomerangs off on that first one I did without Dung Bombay, and it still took that long. That's why I recommended, if you have support move +1, to actually go for damage with it, because it is really helpful. Again, we're not running Go Fight Win here because we really don't have that option. So being able to get, losing 20% affinity, I think is definitely worth it. Having the Flash Bombays go off, he's a monster that will stand still when you flash him occasionally, which is really nice. And I don't think he has a shake off animation. At least I haven't seen it. So he won't be doing that all the time, but he will be standing still. And since a lot of his attacks are melee or his ranged attacks are just kind of pinpoint, you'll still be getting a lot of regular DPS off, even if you're not using Mega Boomerang. So that really will push your damage long. We'll probably certainly be getting better times than just regular stuff too, if you do have all 3 of those skills combined. But if not, absolutely forgo Go Fight Win and just use Dung Bombay. Or if you don't feel comfortable losing Go Fight Win, throw away Mega Boomerang. It's not getting used too terribly often, especially if you're trying to play it safe and not let the monster restore HP. You can go ahead and get rid of Mega Boomerang. Your times will suffer a little bit, but it will be safer, and you won't have to worry about him restoring as much HP, which, again, will make it take less time in the long run. As for the fight itself, it's interesting. So, again, he likes to spam that grab. He's just a regular eating. So, interesting thing, like I said before, that I was going to talk about. When he eats corpses, he wasn't restoring HP. I don't understand what his mechanics are. It's very weird. And I'll say this too. In stories, he had a move that would restore HP when he attacked something. It was a special move. I think it was called Gluttony, which makes sense, right? If the developers know about the mechanic where he restores a ludicrous amount of HP, and they give it to him in stories, it's a very similar, I guess, situation to a hyperspace tackle. It's kind of a funny thing. But here it's actually an intended mechanic where he restores a ludicrous amount of HP when he hits a monster. That's the only thing I can really point to of the developers knowing it, but no one else really knowing it. And I guess they didn't put two and two together. And maybe there have been places where people have talked about it, but I've never noticed it. Either way, he doesn't heal when he eats normal monster carapaces, which I find very odd. I don't know why, but he never was restoring HP when he did that when I was testing. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. The main things you're trying to avoid here are just that pin. He can pull it from neutral. He can pull it from the end of the sway combo, I believe, and some other combos as well. And it can look like he comboed it, but he just kind of pulled it from a neutral stance. The other attacks that you really have to be careful of are his dragon beams, especially if you have the -16 dragon resistance that we have. You want to make sure you're staying away from those. They will have extended range and damage, obviously, whenever he is enraged, like super enraged. So you'll want to stay away from those as well. The waltz is still pretty similar to avoid since we're not dodging that laterally. Or we are dodging it laterally. But the regular standing beam that he does when he either walks forward or walks backwards will be a bit more difficult. If he is enraged, you might just want to try to adept it. Or sheathe your weapon and just completely disengage if he's walking backwards with it. Or sheathe your weapon and walk towards him if he's walking forwards with it. And obviously you don't have to sheathe if you're close enough to him or far away from him. But if you're kind of in that neutral position and you don't know what he's obviously going to do, you'll just want to completely stay away from that. Like here, I was close enough to him where I could just get close to him and actually keep attacking. He's also a Tremor monster, so Tremor resist is very helpful here. It's just not a great fight. He is very annoying and just kind of locking you out of things. And you saw me there actually try to risk a Mega Boomerang. Did not work out at all. On the topic of hit zones, unlike regular Deviljho, he is weaker to Thunder Element on most parts. And even on the ones he's not, his whole body is more weak to Thunder Element in general. So you're just going to go ahead and be using that. For raw hit zones, his chest, which is about where his arms are at, the tiny little things, when he's not enraged. When he is enraged, it's kind of interesting actually. His face becomes, I believe, the only weak spot. And that means that you're having to hit him while his face is shrouded in Dragon Element. And if you kind of follow Valstrax and other things, you'll know that Dragon Element on a monster's body part removes any elemental values on a weapon. It's the same thing as Dragon Blight. So you're not dealing any elemental damage on the face whenever it is enraged. However, you'll be dealing actual weak spot damage when it's enraged. I want to say it's like 60 something, but I've been wrong on these things before because I have terrible memory. So I could be wrong on that. Another thing about Savage here is that he gets exhausted very quickly. I want to say regular Deviljho gets exhausted quickly, but this one feels a lot more heavy on the exhaustion. However, with that being said, he will only stand still once generally during his exhaustion periods, and he still moves fairly quickly. He's slower than his other modes. However, he's still faster compared to some other monsters when they're exhausted at the very least. Apply piercing here. He's going to walk forward. I'd try to stay in the middle range because he can do that little pin grab. I'm going to be careful here. Yep. Knew you were going to do it. So get him off of there. He'll probably leave the area, but that's better than restoring 6% HP at least. Another bad thing is if you are pinned and your cat heals you, I believe that allows him to continue restoring HP. I don't think there is a cap on 6%. That was just the general amount he was healing whenever I had full HP and no defense buffs or anything. If you want to go ahead and test it yourself, if you have the means to do it, by all means, go ahead. I just noticed it and found it to be pretty egregious. So this is not a monster I really want to fight very much. And I want to say this may be part of the meta set for hunters, Blade Master specifically. However, I could be wrong. It may just be Hyper Deviljho, but I think there are some Savage parts you need as well. Like, it may only be one or two, but they are a thing. So you got to be careful about that. And you will have to interact with them a little bit if you're a hunter. But for Palicos, remember, we don't get equipment from variants. So it absolutely does not matter to us at all. The general hunt, like I said before, took over 25 minutes without Dung Bombay. And a little bit over with just solo Dung Bombay. And then I don't think I said with Palicos. Palicos, it took like 21 minutes or something. So a little bit faster than solo, which is surprising. But I was also having to chase him around a lot more because, your cats are going to get pinned a lot more than you are. Not to say I didn't get pinned a fairly large amount myself, but when you can shake it off, it's fine. Another issue is that when he does ping you, he may still get a bite off before you even get the chance to throw a dung bomb. So he might still be restoring 2% HP. Not great, but again, far better than the large amount of 6%. There's that pin. We're going to dodge forward, throw a dung bomb. Don't miss. It is very hard to aim, actually, so he got 4% back, which isn't great. So I'm going to go over the moves real quick. Just, again, regular Dragon Beam. We can avoid that by walking forward if he's walking backwards with it and we're close enough to him. Okay, he's not moving. Sometimes he'll run away, and this is similar to Furious Rajang, where he will run away sometimes to try to get some distance on you. Key difference being that he does not close distance as much as Furious Rajang, so you will have to chase him, which is not great, especially if he pulls out the sway. That's not particularly good. Another thing about the pin attack that we love so much is that if you are in the air, it will just knock you over. It will not actually ping you. So, like, say, I think, and I'm not 100% certain, but if you do this attack, which is the usual attack you would do if you don't have earplugs and you want to min-max not having earplugs stun, I think you'll just be knocked over out of the air and you'll have that little felling animation out of the air. And you won't be pinned, which is good. You don't want to concede to being hit, but if that's your only option, go for it. The other thing is that it does have a trimmer hitbox on that pin. And sometimes you'll just be hit by that. Even if it looks like he very much hits you with the actual pin attack, it will sometimes only just be the trimmer hitbox, which is good. That's much better than him starting to restore HP. The little turnaround bite that's similar to Lavinus. He's a brute wyvern. I'm going to stay away from that. Hitbox is fairly clean sometimes on his tackles. The hip check will go over you sometimes. Don't bank on that. Obviously, you want to just adept it if you're in the way anyways. And if he just misses you, great. I'm going to hold this for a long time and hopefully he walks forwards, or I will lead my shot. Hopefully hit him. There we go. We'll hit some stuff on the tail. And a walk into it. That's good. As for the Walt, it's, again, exactly the same as you normally would on regular Deviljho and Hyper Deviljho. You're just walking to the sides. So going to enrage once more. A couple of boomerangs here. I'll throw one more out, see what he does. There's the bite again. And that, again, that pin is perfectly fine. If he grabs you with it, he'll pick you up in his mouth. He'll carry you around a bit. And honestly, that's fine if he does it with your hats because that keeps him from spamming that pin. The bite doesn't even do that much whenever he does pick you up. Really, the main thing that's dealing damage there is just him moving around. Like a couple of steps will deal a very negligible amount of damage, especially compared to the other pin. Another thing is that some of his beams do hit off to the side, like you saw there. It's more like at the start on the left side, if we're doing it from our perspective, and then at the very end on the right side. And it's the actual same for the Waltz beam. It's just at a different point, so your positioning will have to be a bit different there. Comes the sway. The sway is also an overcommitment move that he can do. So if he does it in a weird direction with your palicos, try to take advantage of that. I'm going to wait and see if he does. Yes, his exhaustion animation. I'm going to try to hover this, but it may not work too well. You get a face break, which is good. This little counter attack forward, however, he wasn't even looking at us, so it doesn't really matter. If you're slick, you can try to evade the big stomp trimmer with your boomerang power-up animation. You are put into the air for that, so if you want to try that, go for it. It's not always, you know, a thing. You're not always reapplying those, so you can't always just use it. And not that it matters that much anyways. All right, a little bit past the 20-minute mark so far. I've not really been getting that many mega boomerangs off, so that's part of the reason why it's taking longer, but you know it usually takes longer. It's not really too big of a surprise. But like I said before, I really just do not like this fight. It's not particularly terrible, and if the pin didn't heal that much, I don't think it would be that bad, but since he spams it so often, it's just very egregious. Is it as bad as Red Helm or Crystal Beard or Snow Baron, I guess, for that matter? I don't know. It's a mixed bag. He has actual hit zones, which is really important in Monster Hunter. And this can be circumvented with either one item, which is in limited supply if you're playing as a hunter, or infinite supply if you're playing as Prowler, which is nice. But he's tanky in general, so he's going to take a long time to kill anyways. And yes, while you're not having to worry about breaking parts for hit zones. The good hit zones he has aren't really the best either. He has the one on the chest when he's not raged and the one on the face when he is, and that's it. And he's not even taking that good element damage on the face because he takes literally 0. So, I don't know. I think I'd lump them together. I don't want to say he's as bad. Again, it's the one thing. I can look past it. I wouldn't say Red Helm would maybe take longer if he had the same amount of health. And my opinions on Red Helm are kind of skewed because I've fought Red Helm in EX and I've fought Red Helm in G5, and that's worse than just a regular quest of a monster. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but I can confidently say he's definitely on like the bottom tier of monsters in this game. And there are a lot of them. So you're going to have some stinkers occasionally, but this one's, again, particularly bad. All right, there's an acorn down. I'm playing pretty sloppily here. I'm just kind of ready to be done. I remember, like I said before, I've already technically recorded this, but I really just wasn't happy with how I completely rambled. And again, if you think this rambling about the attack was bad, it was even worse in the first part. So I really want to just record it again, even if that means sitting here for 25 minutes and just spamming boomerangs at him, waiting for him to die. Again, it's not the most complex fight. You just got to keep spacing on him and make sure you're not overcommitting for that pin, and you should be fine. But it is a fight that is fairly meaty, and I guess you should expect that from Deviljho. I just do find it interesting that the contrast between Deviljho and Rajang, even though they are grouped together, is pretty sharp, which I guess they're kind of opposites. Rajang's the glass cannon that moves pretty quickly, while Deviljho is the slow tank that does quite a bit of damage with different attacks and stuff. So, fair enough, I guess. I'd pick Rajang over this any day. I think regular Deviljho and even Hyper Deviljho, which, you know, normally you don't say Hyper monsters are better because of the HP bloat, but honestly, what's the point here if he has more HP than it looks like he does have? There he goes, limping, and he actually dies as soon as he starts to limp, so thankfully that wasn't a capture quest. We'll see 28 minutes actually on the dot. Not great, but obviously these are going to take a bit longer when I ramble for 15 minutes. Either way, now that he's done, I'll go ahead and cover him up and meet you back at base. Alright, back to base, and something else to note is that Deviljho was actually a small crown one. The weird thing was, the Rajang before that I fought beat the small crown that I already had, and then Deviljho also beat the small crown that I already had. I didn't even know I had a small crown. Furious Rajang and both Savage Deviljho, I do believe, share the same, and I may not have them in the monster menu here. Let me see for sure. They're probably around here somewhere. I think they're in like a weird spot or something. Yeah, so Rajang, which I actually have both crowns for, I've hunted 18 of. That's really nice. If you've ever crown hunted, it's not the best experience in the game unless you just love playing the game. And when I did it, I had a lot of fun. But it's a grindy process, so to get them this quickly, which you'll be more likely to get them in G-rank quests where you're going to be fighting Rajang a lot if you're doing Deviant. So I guess that makes sense. I didn't really spend too much time in high rank and low rank. And Deviljho, I have the silver crown and the small crown for at 15 and 1 capture. I don't know what that was from. Probably from a random Deviant quest that I had to capture something for anyways. Silver counts actually do count towards your crown reward on the large side. So don't worry about going for gold. Just get silver. It's really not that important unless you like having everything be gold. And then you'll have to put in the extra work for that. Something else I will note is that your Palico kills actually count towards it as well. I don't know if they were just worried about it not counting for it when it just randomly kills an actual large monster. But when they're killing Banahabra while you're actually hunting a large monster, that gets tallied into your total. And later on, when I show more achievements and stuff from my personal save, you'll see these numbers get pretty ludicrous. Either way, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a comment below and maybe even consider subscribing. Until next time.